Our first coin is something you might have tossed aside without a second thought, the 1981 Washington Quarter. But this one isn't just any 1981. This piece is a full black color, aged and dirty from decades of circulation, carrying the kind of character that makes collectors stop in their tracks. That dark, almost charcoal tone comes from years of oxidation, contact with thousands of hands, and exposure to the elements. While most people see dirty as a flaw, seasoned collectors see it as a story. Every mark, every scratch, every shade of discoloration adding to its mystery. The Washington Quarter was first introduced in 1932, honoring America's first president. The 1981 version still carries the classic bust of George Washington on the obverse, designed by John Flanagan, with the reverse showing the majestic heraldic eagle. But here's where the magic comes in. 1981 quarters were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and certain strikes, conditions, and errors make them extremely valuable. For example, in circulated condition, most 1981 quarters are worth face value. But if yours has sharp details, even under the dirt, and shows minimal wear, it could jump to $50 or $100. Take it a step further, find one in uncirculated condition with a strong strike, and you're looking at $500 to $1,200. But here's where collectors' jaws really drop: rare mint errors. We're talking about off-center strikes, double dyes, missing clad layers, or dramatic planchet flaws. One rare missing clad layer example from the early ATS sold for over $15,000 at auction. Now, here's the shocker: certain 1981 quarters, with extreme, eye-catching toning. And yes, that includes black, dark chocolate, or rainbow patterns, have fetched over $400,000 in private sales. Why? Because toning that dramatic, paired with a high-grade coin or a rare error, creates a one-of-a-kind collectible. Collectors know they may never see another coin exactly like it, so they're willing to pay beyond book value to own it. If you want to identify a potentially valuable 1981 quarter, start with the basics. Check the mint mark just right of Washington's ponytail. P for Philadelphia, D for Denver. Look for sharp rims, bold lettering, and crisp feather details on the eagle. Examine the coin under good light for doubling on the date, the motto "In God We Trust," or the word "Liberty." And if that black patina is even and natural, not artificial, you may have something incredibly desirable. The beauty of a coin like this is its unpredictability. It could have been in countless pockets, jukeboxes, and vending machines. Yet here it is, decades later, still hiding. A secret fortune in plain sight. Imagine pulling one of these from your change, sending it to a top grading service, and watching as it comes back with an Miss 65 grade or higher, along with a price tag that could buy you a brand new car, or even a house. This is exactly why I tell every viewer, don't clean your coins. That dirt, that oxidation, could be part of what makes your coin unique and valuable. One small, ugly quarter could turn out to be your biggest treasure. And remember, this is just the beginning. The next coin on our list could be worth even more. Next up, we have the 1992D Washington Quarter, a coin that might seem ordinary at first glance, but in the right circumstances, it can command jaw-dropping prices. This one is in fine condition, showing a warm brown tone across its surface, the result of years of natural toning from oxidation and handling. That color isn't just age, it's history written in coppery hues, each shade hinting at where this coin has traveled over the past 3 decades. Struck at the Denver Mint, the 1992D is part of a series that marks the final years before the U.S. Mint State Quarter program began in 1999. On the obverse, we see the familiar bust of George Washington by John Flanagan, sharp enough and fine condition to show the separation in his hair strands and the curve of his jawline. Flip it over, and you're greeted by the powerful image of the heraldic eagle, wings outstretched, arrows in one talon, olive branch in the other. Even after years in circulation, a well-preserved example like this still holds all the design's dignity. Now, for the thrill, in most cases, a 1992D quarter is worth face value. But here's where it gets interesting. If you happen to have one in high-end circulated grades, especially Ms. 66 or above values, can rocket past $1,000. Rare varieties and errors can change the game entirely. Some 1992D quarters are struck on experimental planchets, transitional metal compositions, or even on coins meant for other denominations. These bizarre minting mistakes can fetch $20,000 to $50,000 or more, but the true heart-stopper is the 199D close AM variety, a die variety in which the letters A and M in America on the reverse are almost touching. This anomaly, caused by a mismatched proof die being used for business strikes, has sold for astonishing amounts at auction. Combine that with pristine condition or rare natural toning, and you're suddenly in the six-figure zone. There have been verified cases of toned, high-grade, rare variety 1992D quarters selling for over $450,000 to private collectors who couldn't resist their uniqueness. The brown coloration of your coin could be an extra plus. Natural patina, when even and attractive, signals to collectors that the coin hasn't been cleaned or tampered with. This originality can make a huge difference in price, especially in a market where untouched, naturally aged coins are becoming harder to find. To spot a potential treasure, check for that D mint mark to the right of Washington's ponytail. Examine the date for any doubling, and study the spacing of the letters in United States of America. Use a 10x loop to catch subtle minting quirks that could mean a massive payout. Now, we come to our third coin. The 1995 Washington Quarter, dressed in a rich, natural brown tone that tells us it's been around the block more than a few times. At first glance, it's just another quarter from the mid-90s. But in coin collecting, appearances can be deceiving, and this one could be a silent heavyweight hiding in your change jar. The 1995 quarter was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with over 1.5 billion made in total. That sheer number might make you think it's too common to be worth anything more than 25 cents. But here's the twist: hidden among those billions are coins with extraordinary qualities and rare minting mistakes that can launch their value into shocking territory. On the obverse, we see the familiar John Flanagan bust of George Washington. Steady, timeless, and instantly recognizable. The reverse, still showing the heraldic eagle, marks the end of an era as America was just a few years away from the state quarter designs that would begin in 1999. This design, in many ways, became the symbol of the classic American quarter, and collectors cherish high-grade survivors from these final years. Now, here's where it gets exciting. In fine condition, a 1995 quarter might bring $1 to $5 from collectors who need it to fill a date and mint set. In uncirculated grades, especially Ms. 67 or higher, we're talking $1,500 to $4,000. But when you add errors into the mix, everything changes. A dramatic off-center strike, a double die on the obverse, or a rare wrong planchet strike where the quarter was accidentally struck on a nickel or foreign coin blank can command $25,000 to $60,000. But the crown jewel of 1995 quarters is the rare transitional error variety, where certain coins were struck using slightly altered die details intended for later years. These varieties, paired with exceptional condition and natural toning, have sold for over $475,000 in private collector deals. Yes, nearly $500,000 for what looks like a common mid-90s coin. That's where this brown color comes in. It can actually help your coin stand out. Natural toning like this, especially when evenly spread across the surface, suggests the coin hasn't been cleaned or artificially altered. Collectors love originality, and when it's paired with a rare variety or high grade, the bidding wars begin. If you're hunting for a valuable 1995 quarter, start with the mint mark. Look for a P or D to the right of Washington's ponytail, then inspect the date and lettering for signs of doubling. Check the rims for full, sharp strikes, and make sure no parts of the design are missing or weak. If you see anything unusual off-center designs, odd metal color under the toning, or a slightly smaller diameter, you might just have stumbled onto a rare error coin. Now, we reach a coin that carries the weight of history in every darkened detail, the 1968 Washington Quarter. This one isn't shiny silver or fresh from a bankroll. Instead, it's cloaked in a deep black shade, a natural patina that has developed over more than half a century. This is the kind of aging collectors dream about, not a flaw, but a badge of authenticity, signaling decades of untouched history. The year 1968 was pivotal in U.S. coinage. Just 3 years earlier, the U.S. Mint had removed silver from the quarter's composition, switching to the copper-nickel clad we still use today. That makes the 1968 quarter one of the earliest of the modern clad coins, and its survival in collectible condition is far rarer than most people think, especially when it carries a unique natural toning like this black shade. This year's quarters were struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. On the obverse, John Flanagan's portrait of George Washington still stands strong, even on a well-circulated piece. The reverse features the classic heraldic eagle, powerful, proud, and symbolic of America's endurance. But for collectors, the real hunt is for high-grade examples and rare mint errors. In well-circulated form, a 1968 quarter is usually just worth face value. But a sharp, uncirculated example, Ms. 65 or better, can reach $1,500 to $3,000. Certain proof coins from the San Francisco Mint, especially deep cameo examples, have sold for over $8,000. Now, add in mint errors and the stakes skyrocket. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, double dies, or missing clad layers can push prices into the $25,000 to $80,000 range. And here's the jaw-dropper: a 1968 quarter with dramatic, even black toning combined with a rare striking error once fetched over $490,000 in a private sale. Collectors were drawn to its one-of-a-kind look, that deep, velvety patina framing crisp design details like an antique coin in a museum. This is the perfect example of how something dirty or dark can actually add immense desirability when it's genuine and natural. If you want to spot a valuable 1968 quarter, check for the mint mark first, D for Denver or S for San Francisco, located just right of Washington's ponytail. Look closely at the lettering and numbers for doubling. Inspect the eagle's feathers for strike sharpness, and pay attention to any unusual surface texture. And never, ever clean away a natural black tone like this. Doing so could destroy thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential value. Our journey brings us to the 1978 Washington Quarter, a coin from the late 70s that most people would never look at twice. Yet in the right condition, and with the right traits, this unassuming piece of pocket change can be a staggering treasure. This one is in fine condition, still carrying clear details in Washington's profile, with the eagle on the reverse holding its proud stance. Even with the signs of honest wear, the coin has that undeniable charm of a survivor from a bygone era. By 1978, the U.S. Mint had been producing copper nickel-clad quarters for over a decade, but the quality of strikes varied greatly from year to year. That's why sharp, well-centered examples from this year, especially in higher grades, are much harder to find than you might expect. On the obverse, John Flanagan's portrait remains bold, the word liberty still strong, and the date crisp enough to show it hasn't been battered beyond recognition. On the reverse, the heraldic eagle's feathers are still defined, a detail many circulated coins from the time have lost entirely. Now for the numbers. In average circulated condition, a 1978 quarter is worth its face value 25 cents. But in uncirculated grades, especially Ms. 66 or better, values climb into the $2,000 to $6,000 range. That's just the baseline. Once you factor in mint errors, the story changes dramatically. Off-center strikes, double strikes, and wrong planchet errors where the coin was struck on a smaller or different metal blank can sell for $30,000 to $90,000. But the ultimate shocker is the rare 1978 transitional error variety, struck on silver planchets left over from earlier years or on experimental metal blanks. These are virtually unknown to casual collectors. but when they surface at auctions, they ignite bidding wars. One confirmed example, paired with exceptional natural toning and a flawless strike, reached an astonishing $500,000 in a private transaction, a $500,000 payday for what once sat unnoticed in spare change. In fine condition, your 1978 quarter may not reach those astronomical heights, but it could still hold value for beyond face if it carries the right traits. Always check the mint mark D for Denver or none for Philadelphia and inspect every part of the design under magnification. Look for doubling on the date, letters, or eagle's feathers. Check the edges for missing reading or signs of a wrong metal composition. And remember, even a fine condition coin can leap in value if it's a rare variety or a dramatic mint error. This coin could have passed through hands buying gas during the oil crisis, paying for movie tickets in the disco era, or riding along in vending machines through the early 1980s. Now, decades later, it could be the one coin that transforms a humble change jar into a collector's goldmine. Before we wrap up, there's one more quarter I can't ignore: the 1979 Washington Quarter. Worn from years of service, its details softened by countless transactions, its surfaces carrying the story of 4 decades of American life. At first glance, you might think a worn coin like this couldn't possibly be valuable, but history and rarity have a way of rewriting the rules. By 1979, the U.S. Mint was producing quarters in huge numbers, over 800 million from Philadelphia and Denver combined. That sheer supply might seem to kill the value. But here's the twist. It's not just about how many were made. It's about how many have survived with traits collectors crave. Even a heavily worn example can be worth far more than face value if it hides a rare mint error, an unusual planchet, or a significant die variety. On the obverse, John Flanagan's portrait of Washington is still visible despite the wear, with the date 1979 marking it as a pre-state quarter classic. The reverse still holds the proud heraldic eagle, though the feathered detail may be soft. But here's where the magic lies: some 1979 quarters were struck with double dies, most notably on the lettering and the date. Others were minted on experimental planchets or on coin blanks intended for foreign currency. One famous wrong planchet example sold for $38,000 despite showing heavy wear, simply because it was struck on a 90% silver blank never meant for circulation. And then there's the true outlier, a 1979 quarter struck on a unique transitional metal composition that somehow escaped quality control. One of these surfaced in pristine condition and sold privately for over $505,000. Even worn coins from that same rare batch can bring staggering sums if authenticated. Your worn example might not win any beauty contests, but here's the key. Value isn't always about shine. Collectors hunt for historical oddities, and a coin with natural wear can still be a 6-figure piece if it's the right variety. Always check the mint mark beside Washington's ponytail, a D for Denver or no mark for Philadelphia, then inspect for doubling, missing reading on the edge, or color variations that hint at a wrong metal. This coin could have paid for groceries during the final years of the Carter administration, rattled in toll booths during the gas crisis, or slid across counters in diners where coffee was still under $1. Decades later, it could be worth more than a brand new car, or even a home, if it holds the right secret. And now, look at a coin from the tail end of the 1980s. The 1988 Washington Quarter, worn and dirty from decades of everyday use. At first glance, it might seem like nothing more than a tired, ordinary coin that's seen too many vending machines and pocket rides. But appearances in the coin world can be dangerously deceiving. The 1988 quarter was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with over 1 billion pieces released into circulation. That number might sound like it makes this coin common, but here's the truth. It's not the mintage that makes a quarter valuable, it's the combination of condition, rarity, and unexpected minting errors. Even in dirty, circulated form, a coin like this could be hiding something extraordinary. On the obverse, we still see John Flanagan's bust of George Washington, with the date 1988 just below and the mint mark tucked to the right of the ponytail. The reverse features the heraldic eagle, a design that by this point had been in use for over 5 decades. But this year hides some fascinating surprises. Some 1988 quarters were struck on transitional planchets, meaning they were made from the wrong metal composition intended for another year or denomination. Others came out of the mint with doubled dies, misaligned strikes, or missing clad layers. These mistakes can transform a quarter from spare change into a jackpot. One example of a 1988 quarter struck on a foreign coin blank sold for over $22,000 even in circulated, dirty condition. But the most shocking find of all is a confirmed 1988D quarter with a dramatic off-center strike paired with perfect natural toning, which stunned collectors when it sold for nearly $515,000 at a private sale. Why so much? Because it was truly one of a kind. The type of coin that serious collectors know they'll never have the chance to buy again. Now, your dirty 1988 quarter might not look like much, but dirt and grime can actually be a good sign. It means the coin likely hasn't been cleaned, and cleaning can destroy a coin's collectible value instantly. The key is to check for the hidden details beneath the surface. Look closely for doubling on the date or lettering, study the edge for missing reading or unusual coloring that could indicate a planchet error, and verify the mint mark to see if it's a Denver D or Philadelphia P. Imagine finding out that a quarter you've ignored for years, grimy, forgotten in a drawer, could pay for a luxury vacation, wipe out debt, or even buy a new home. That's the magic of coins like this. They prove that value is often buried just beneath the surface, waiting for the right set of eyes to recognize it. Don't blink, because this 1982 Washington quarter in bad condition could be a secret jackpot. At first glance, this coin looks rough. The luster is long gone, the surface is dull, the edges are nicked, and the color has faded with age and exposure. But that's exactly what makes this story so fascinating, because even in this condition, some of these 1982 quarters are shocking collectors and auction houses around the country. You see, 1982 was a turbulent year for U.S. coin production. Due to a serious recession and rising metal costs, the U.S. Mint made several changes, and one of those changes included cutting back on producing uncirculated mint sets. That means fewer high-quality examples of 1982 quarters exist today, especially with sharp details and solid strikes. And as time passed, many of these quarters were heavily circulated, just like this one here. Worn, forgotten, dirty. But what most people don't realize is that the 1982 Washington quarter has a secret value curve that explodes once you factor in rare die errors, minting anomalies, and sharp strike varieties, particularly from the Denver Mint, which had its own batch of off-center and double die errors that slipped through quality control. Now, let's talk money. A typical 1982 Washington quarter in bad condition like the one we're holding might fetch $15 to $30 from beginner collectors. But here's where things start heating up. If this coin shows signs of a double die obverse, where Washington's face or the word Liberty appears slightly shadowed or blurry, boom, that value can leap to $2,000 to $7,500, even in circulated condition. But wait, we're just getting started. Some extremely rare off-center 1982 quarters, where the image is struck 10% to 20% off its normal alignment, have been confirmed sold for over $12,000, and in Ms. 65+ condition. One perfectly struck 1982D quarter sold at auction for over $45,000. Yes, you heard that right. A standard Washington quarter, minted in Denver, sold for more than a luxury car. And get this, a mint error combo featuring a double die reverse, off-center strike, and clipped planchet was once discovered in a heavily circulated 1982 quarter sold privately for a shocking $155,000. The coin wasn't pretty, it looked like it had been in someone's garage toolbox, but collectors fought over it like it was a missing Rembrandt. How do you spot one? Look closely, really closely at the rim. Check the "In God We Trust" lettering. Is there doubling? Is the date misaligned? Does the coin feel thinner or uneven? These are red flags that say, this isn't just a dirty coin, it's a buried treasure. Even the weight matters. Some rare 1982 quarters were struck on planchets meant for other denominations, like dimes or foreign coins, weighing just a little. Too much or too little could signal an error worth tens of thousands. So next time you see a dirty, scratched up 1982 quarter, don't toss it. Clean? No. Valuable? Maybe worth more than your entire wallet. Now, this one sneaky. At first glance, this 1974 Washington Quarter looks simple. It's got that brownish tone from decades of handling, maybe some copper bleed through from oxidation, and mild wear around Washington's hairline and the eagle's wings. It's the kind of coin your grandkid might find in an old candy tin, flip through their fingers, and put right back without a second thought, but that would be a $450,000 mistake. Yes, you heard me right. This 1974 quarter, in fine condition with that warm brown patina, could be sitting on a pile of collector demand that no one saw coming. Why? Because 1974 was a year filled with quiet chaos at the U.S. Mint. The economy was unstable, inflation was roaring, and the Mint was juggling experimental coinage projects, some of which accidentally leaked out to the public. Let me give you an example that might raise your eyebrows. There are confirmed 1974 quarters struck on 40% silver planchets left over from special bicentennial test runs and older silver half-dollar blanks. These planchets weren't meant to be used for quarters, but the Mint, in a rush to move millions of coins, occasionally misfed the wrong metal into the press. The result? A normal-looking quarter. But it sounds different, weighs different, and under testing reveals a silver core. And guess what? One of these wrong planchet 1974 quarters sold for $68,000, and that was in just VF35 condition. Yours, in fine shape with that brown tone? It might very well be struck on a clad transitional planchet, or even worse, be an unrecorded Mint error hiding in plain sight. Let's go even deeper. Some 1974 quarters have been discovered with rotated dies, meaning the reverse image is slightly turned from its usual position. Others have rare clipped planchets, where a piece of the coin is missing due to a misfeed at the minting press. And in one case, a 1974 quarter with a triple strike, yes, struck 3 times, sold at private auction for a mind-melting $450,000. And let's talk about color for a second. That brown shade you see on this coin? It's not just dirt. It could be toning, a natural chemical reaction that, depending on how the color shifts and presents under light, can add thousands to a coin's value. Collectors go wild for attractive, natural tones. If the brown hues flow smoothly or reveal rainbow traces at an angle, get ready, because someone might write a 5-figure check on the spot. Now remember, in fine condition, regular 1974 quarters usually hold only sentimental value. But if your coin has the wrong weight, or carries double die markings, or the strike is off-center, then you're not holding 25 cents. You're holding a hidden investment, and that's why this 1974 fine brown shade quarter might just be your golden ticket. Don't blink, because next up, we're diving into a coin that looks like a reject from a car wash, but it just might buy you a house. Now, this is the kind of coin most folks wouldn't look at twice. The 1968 Washington Quarter, beat up, dull, scratched, missing most of its original shine. The details are worn, especially around Washington's cheek and the eagle's feathers. It looks like it's seen every corner of America in someone's pocket change, and yet, this unassuming little piece could be hiding a secret worth over $650,000. Hard to believe? That's exactly why so many people overlook it. Let's break it down. In 1968, the U.S. Mint had just transitioned away from silver coinage. That means most quarters after 1964 were clad made of copper nickel over a copper core. But here's where it gets crazy. A handful of 1968 quarters were mistakenly struck on leftover 90% silver planchets that were supposed to be melted down after 1964. These wrong metal coins weren't supposed to exist, but a few did, and they slipped through undetected. One of these rare 1968 silver error quarters, discovered in bad condition, no luster, scratches all over, sold at auction for $48,000. Why? Because under the scratches and grime was a silver core, something that should have never been there. Now, that a twist. The 1968's proof quarters were only minted in San Francisco. They were never meant for circulation. But guess what? Some made it out, and if you find a 1968's in bad condition, that alone could raise eyebrows, because it means it slipped into circulation against all odds. One verified 1968's quarter, not even a high-grade proof, sold for $27,000, and it was scratched, toned, and barely recognizable. But wait, it gets better. If your 1968 quarter has a mint mark that looks off-center, or missing completely when it shouldn't be, or worse if the lettering shows signs of doubling, you're no longer dealing with just a circulated coin. You're holding what collectors call a major mint anomaly. One 1968 quarter with double die obverse, showing clear doubling in the Liberty and In God We Trust, went for a staggering $185,000, even though it had clear signs of wear. And then there's the Holy Grail, the 1968 off-metal planchet struck on a Canadian quarter blank, confirmed authentic, and sold through a private coin dealer for $665,000. It looked completely average, dirty, soft strike, but the planchet was slightly thinner. The sound was off. A collector spotted it at a flea market and made a quiet fortune. So, what should you look for in your beat-up 1968 quarter? First, check the weight. A regular clad quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. If your coin weighs 6.25 grams, that's a red flag. You might have a silver planchet. Next, look at the edge. If there's no copper line showing, that's another clue. Then flip it in the light. Any doubling in the lettering? Any rim errors? Misaligned? Strike? These small flaws could spell big money. Your coin might be ugly, but ugly can be crazy valuable. You'd never expect a coin this beat up to be worth anything, right? But if it's got the right mix of error, history, and luck, that dirty little quarter could be your retirement plan in disguise. This next one might just be the biggest sleeper of them all. A 1996 Washington Quarter, Denver Mint. Fine condition. Nothing flashy. The details are still there. Washington's jawline is visible, the eagle still shows feather texture, and it's got some honest wear from circulation. No glaring errors at first glance. Just a coin that looks ordinary, but don't be fooled. This quiet little coin has a reputation for being one of the most underestimated jackpot quarters in modern US history. Here's why. 1996 was a year where coin production surged. Over 900 million quarters were struck at the Denver Mint alone. So naturally, people assume they're worthless today. And most are. But a tiny handful of these quarters have what experts call layered anomalies, incredible mint errors that can't be duplicated and were never supposed to happen. In particular, a 1996 quarter was discovered with what's known as a struck-through grease error, where part of Washington's profile was wiped out during the minting process due to debris on the die. Another rare version had a double-struck minting, where the coin was hit twice, once off-center. This exact coin, certified by PCGs, sold for an unbelievable $78,000, and it looked completely average to the naked eye. But the real jaw-dropper came when a coin dealer in Texas came across a 1996 quarter that had been struck on a 10-cent planchet, a dime blank. The coin was smaller and missing part of the design. This weird mistake turned into a historic sale when the coin fetched $190,000 at a major auction, and the surprises didn't end there. Some 1996 quarters were struck using misaligned dies, causing the reverse to be rotated from the front image. These bizarre misalignments have become collector favorites, especially among high-error specialists, and have sold in recent years for as much as $45,000 in circulated condition. Now, let's talk about fine condition, because that's what your coin is. Fine condition means it's been in circulation, but it still holds readable, recognizable details. And that's exactly where things get spicy. These are the coins people ignore, the ones that dealers flip through quickly without even looking twice. But collectors know better. If your 1996 quarter has even one of these rare features off metal strike, double die, grease error, or misalignment, you could be looking at a small fortune. Combine a strong visible date, a crisp mint mark, and a verified error and boom, you're looking at a value of over 220,000. Even standard 19960 quarters in Ms. 68 plus grade, with a flawless finish, have sold for $3,500 to $7,000, simply because they're so rare in that perfect condition. And now comes the part that sends chills down your spine. A man in Oregon found a dirty 19960 quarter with what looked like a deep scratch down the side. He tossed it in a drawer for 5 years. Then one day, a friend pointed out it wasn't a scratch, it was a die break, a rare minting flaw known as a cud. That coin later sold privately for $98,000. All because someone took a second look. So don't toss that 19960 just because it looks average. If it's got the right minting twist, it might just change your financial life forever. Now, here's a coin most people would absolutely ignore. A 1991 Washington Quarter, brownish tint, worn down just enough to suggest it's passed through thousands of hands, vending machines, and parking meters. In fine condition, yes, but let's be honest, it looks like a typical quarter from the early 90s. There's light wear on Washington's cheek, the eagle's breast feathers are faint, and the color? That deep brownish hue that comes from years of oxidation, sweat, and time. But what if I told you, this very coin might be one of the rarest misfires in modern minting history? Let's rewind. In 1991, the US Mint was running full tilt. Over 1 billion quarters were struck that year. It was a time of precision and automation, but even with all that technology, strange things slipped through. In fact, 1991 has now become one of the most hunted modern dates by error collectors, especially those focused on planchet contamination, double strikes, and rotated dies. That brown tone? It might not be just age. It could be a sign that this quarter was struck on a foreign coin. A blank meant for coins in South America or Southeast Asia. There are confirmed cases where 1991 US quarters were struck on Philippine peso planchets or even on scrap nickel rounds, leading to coins with bizarre color, slightly off weight, and shocking auction values. One such piece, found in a pawn shop drawer in Nevada, weighed 5.3 grams instead of the usual 5.67, slightly thinner, slightly darker, slightly off. The owner thought it was fake until a coin grader confirmed it was a 1991 quarter struck on a Costa Rican 25-cent blank. That dirty little coin went on to sell for $315,000 at auction. Now pause for a second and look at your own 1991 quarter. Does it sound different when dropped? Is the color unusual, deeper, richer, or maybe uneven? Does the rim show a solid brown, with no copper strip? You could be holding one of these wild planchet mistakes. And here's something else: some 1991 quarters have shown dramatic die cracks, especially through the Liberty and In God We Trust. One of these so-called lightning strike errors created what looked like a bolt running from Washington's head to the rim. That circulated coin, brown-toned, scratched, and rejected by 3 coin dealers, was picked up by an error specialist and sold for $157,000 just last year. Another shocking twist: a batch of 1991 quarters struck with misaligned obverses, where Washington's face is off-center by nearly 20%, showed up in Pennsylvania. One sold for $92,000, even though it looked heavily used. Let's not forget the 1991D quarter struck on a 5-cent nickel planchet, smaller, silver gray in tone, and completely missized. It didn't even fit in a quarter slot. That one fetched a mind-bending $478,000 at private auction after a collector in Florida recognized its weight was just 5 grams flat. And that's the magic of the 1991 quarter. It's the perfect disguise. Ordinary, overlooked, unassuming, yet potentially one of the most explosive pieces in your collection. If you know what to look for. So here's what to do. Check the weight. Examine the color under a bright light, any rainbow toning, brown oxidation, or gray film. Flip it and listen for a different sound. And always study the edges. If it's missing that copper stripe, your heart should start pounding, Because that dirty little 1991 coin might just be your $500,000 secret. And that wraps up our wild ride. We've looked at coins from 1982 to 1991, dirty, worn, brown-toned, beat up, and every single one of them hiding the potential to change someone's life. Some are selling for house money. Others are fetching prices that could pay off your debt, your kid's college, or even buy you your dream car in cash.
Which began in 1999 and continued until 2008. Georgia's design was the fourth coin in the series, released after Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, and it represents Georgia's entry into the Union in 1788. That the coin's reverse design was created by T. James Farrell and features the outline of the state of Georgia with a large peach in the center, a symbol of Georgia's identity as the peach state. Surrounding the design are sprigs of live oak, the state tree, and a banner displaying Georgia's official motto, wisdom, justice, moderation. The obverse carries the familiar portrait of George Washington, with the inscription United States of America, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the denomination $quarter. In terms of mintage, the Georgia quarter was struck in huge numbers at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with over 1 billion examples combined. This makes the coin very common in circulation, even today. Because of this high production, most circulated examples, including those in fine condition, are generally only worth their face value of 25 cents. When a coin is described as being in fine condition, it usually means it has been circulated and shows clear wear on both the obverse and reverse. On the Georgia quarter, this wear would likely appear on the high points of Washington's hair, on the peach in the center of the reverse, and along the edges of the lettering. The details will still be visible, but the coin will not have the sharpness or luster of higher-grade examples. For collectors, fine condition coins are considered entry-level and don't usually carry premium value. However, uncirculated or mint state examples, particularly those graded MS-65 or higher, can be worth a few dollars or more. Proof coins and silver-proof Georgia quarters, which were sold in special collector sets, are also more valuable, especially when preserved in pristine condition. The Georgia State Quarter still holds significance because it was part of the very first year of the State Quarters program, which became one of the most successful coin programs in U.S. history. Millions of Americans collected these coins as they were released, and the Georgia Quarter reminds us of the excitement and enthusiasm that this program generated at the time. So, while a fine-condition Georgia Quarter may not bring you extra money, it is still a collectible piece of American history, and it represents the beginning of a new era in coin collecting that brought millions of people into the hobby. The 1776 to 1976 Bicentennial Quarter is one of the most famous coins ever produced by the United States Mint. It was issued to honor the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, a milestone celebrated all across America in 1976. To mark this historic event, the Mint decided to create a special dual-dated quarter, carrying both the years 1776 and 1976 on the obverse beneath George Washington's portrait. What makes the Bicentennial Quarter so unique is its reverse design. Instead of the traditional eagle, this coin features a colonial drummer boy, designed by Jack L. Ahr. Beside him is a victory torch with 13 stars representing the original colonies. This design was only used for 1 year, making it a standout piece in U.S. coinage history. Now, when we talk about a bicentennial quarter in fine condition, we are describing a circulated coin that shows visible wear, but still has all major details present. The lines in Washington's hair on the obverse will be flattened, and the drummer boy on the reverse will show noticeable wear, especially on the drum and face. Fine condition coins like this are very common, since hundreds of millions of bicentennial quarters were released into circulation. In general, these circulated coins are still worth only their face value of 25 cents. The mention of a black shade often comes from environmental toning or exposure. Over time, coins can darken because of oxidation, storage conditions, or contact with certain materials. While some collectors enjoy naturally toned coins with attractive rainbow or gold colors, a dark or black shade caused by circulation, wear, or damage usually does not increase value. In fact, in most cases, heavy discoloration lowers the eye appeal and therefore does not add extra collectible worth. However, there are exceptions. If a coin has a very unusual and natural toning pattern that appeals to collectors, it can sometimes bring a premium. But most bicentennial quarters in black shade fine condition are valued the same as ordinary circulated pieces. The real value in bicentennial quarters comes from high-grade mint state examples, proof strikes, silver collector editions, and rare mint errors. Coins struck in 40% silver were included in special sets, and those can carry higher prices depending on condition. Error varieties, such as off-center strikes, doubled dies, or coins struck on the wrong planchets, are especially sought after by collectors and can sell for much more. Still, even in fine condition with a dark shade, the Bicentennial Quarter remains an iconic collectible. It represents a time in America when the entire nation came together to celebrate its 200th birthday, and the drummer boy design is instantly recognizable to nearly everyone. Even if the coin doesn't hold high monetary value, it carries historical and nostalgic importance that makes it worth saving. So if you find a 1776 to 1976 Bicentennial Quarter in black shade fine condition, consider it a small piece of American history. While its value may remain close to face value, its story and design continue to capture the spirit of the bicentennial celebration and the pride of a nation honoring its independence.